Good morning, everyone. John471 here to discuss the S&P 500. Today is Thursday, May 1st, 2025. Allow me to read our disclaimer. Derivatives trading is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. Let's go on to our news. As noted, today is Thursday, May 1st. The data that we have to be aware of starting at 8:30. We have initial jobless claims. 9:45 after the bell, we have PMI manufacturing final. And at 10 a.m., we have ISM manufacturing, as well as construction spending. That 10 o'clock hour will probably be the most important news we have today. Continuing on, we really don't have anything else after that. We'll probably be looking ahead to the employment report tomorrow. So, with that, there's potential to have usually when the Thursday before NFP, you kind of expect a bit of a move early and then for it to quiet down later. The environment lately has been quite different. So, who's to say what we'll get today? So it's the same as every day. We don't really know what we're going to get. Let's move on to our charts. Okay, we'll start here today. This is a chart of the S&Ps. Full session bars, daily candles. It says 1,380 minutes, but that's one day as far as the futures market is concerned. But anyway, so just picking up our storyline where we sort of left it yesterday, the big story had been this 4-9 day. Could we push through it? We did, and we did it in this kind of choppy, trending way. And we had our gap zone here, 4-3 gap zone, which is really kind of like the over-under line. And if we had pushed through it, what we were looking for was a test of this March VPOC, this 5670 region. And if that didn't happen, we were looking for a push lower, and the singles were a very important target. And if those singles broke, we were looking for this gap zone. So we were betwixt two gap zones. How about that? And what happened yesterday, we were looking if we got the break of the one time framing and we really lost the prior day's range. We were looking for reversion down into these singles, the 5650, 5456 area. And we actually got it. I mean, it was pretty much a bullseye. We opened, we dropped the prior day's range, we pushed to this area, right to this area, and we examined two possibilities for the test of this area. One would be a lick check that reverted higher. The other would be a attempt to find support and then a grinding zone-to-zone move lower. And quite obviously, we got the lick check and it just reverted higher. And so that's what we got yesterday. And it was not unexpected action. I thought it was I thought it was pretty tradable. I thought the initial move was tradable, but it was fast, and then the push higher I thought had some nice opportunity, especially on the break of the initial balance high, which is a big thing that we look for here at CT. But anyway, so that's what we got yesterday, and as of now, that bullish momentum has just carried forward, and we are trading above the prior day's high as of now. So let's go to a smaller time frame chart and take a look at that a little bit closer. Okay, so here's a 30-minute chart. The profiles are daily, broken up into RTH and full session. And here we can kind of just see that choppy uptrend that we were talking about, and we saw this pull back to it, right to the expected area. What we can notice here is, just looking at this profile, we see that on this drop below this area, also notice we dropped below that anchored VWAP I had been talking about as well. But we see that as we fell out of this area, it was like an advertisement, like, hey, does anybody have to sell anything down here? Is anyone willing to sell anything down here? And no one was willing to sell anything down here. And we reverted higher to this area where it seemed like a lot of people like to trade, a lot of activity happening here. But even though there's a lot of activity, the buyers were more aggressive, and we pushed higher. And we pushed higher and broke through the area that we were looking at, that we were attentive to. So what's to notice about this? When we have this, it's So we have like this cohesive force, which is basically just value, the cohesive force of value that keeps us here. And then what happens, we test lower and spring back. And then what happens here, we push higher. And if you've ever, say, like cracked a joint or something, what happens here is actually fairly similar. The cohesive force holds us together. It's holding everything in this area, and then it pops, and then there's a space here, just like a joint popping. That's how a joint cracks. It's like a joint is held together, and then it pops apart, and there's a space in between it that then allows it to move better. And that's exactly what happened here. The trade was all, kept in this tight area. We tested lower, snapped back, and now we've popped above, and there is a space right there. This will factor into plans. This was our 4-3 gap zone, which right now we're set as of now. I mean, it's not yet the cash open, but we're looking to gap above it. What we notice as well is, we just totally did not even retest the prior day's range on the reopen. Our settle is way down here at 87. This is the prior month's settle because this is the first day of the month. So our settlement is way down here, and you can see just sort of that space that I was talking about is essentially right there. So what can that portend for today? What potential scenarios can we envision? Let's get into it here. Let me get our Epic pen, and we'll plan for today. Okay, here we are, still on the 30-minute chart, but zoomed in a little bit better. We'll put the stock zones up because they will factor in. Stock zones, if you're a Convergent member, you get them for free along with the master levels. Let's go over bullish ideas first. Bullish ideas first because that's the weather when I look outside. So anyway, we have our full session low right about here. We're gapping above this gap. And you see we have a reasonably balanced overnight profile. However, we're pushing. We seem to be willing to accept prices. The VPOC is looking like support, tentative support. We're pushing higher. The 5670s were the target. This zone, it looks like we're probably going to get it. So let's just discuss the most bullish idea first, which will be if we just don't even touch this zone right here. We don't get a pullback here, and this zone ends up being support. I'll note that when I say something like that, we could easily just have a quick dip and pop above, and this still counts as support. So that's what I'm talking about. Basically, if this becomes the support that we react off of, and we do not take the overnight low. If that happens, I mean, we've seen this plenty, just expecting, just a trend higher that may be difficult to trade, some type of push higher to this target. With acceptance of this target, then I would just be looking for zone to zone, essentially zone to zone action higher. The key target, the initial first key target will be this zone and this SOC. This is the Tariff News SOC. This is an area where I would expect to be retested if we're able to get above this 70 zone, because the 70 zone is the big target. This is what everyone's looking at. And now with the way that we've kind of hit it, if we can push and start to expand rotations above, I would expect higher prices. This 5690 zone would be the first key target. If we're able to just continue bullish action here, I'll just tell you that my big target for longs, whether it happens today or tomorrow, is going to be this zone, the 5739 prior month's high. This is the high of April. This is my key target for this bullish run. If we start to essentially do the same thing that we saw here, which is just a choppy trend. So that's what I'd be looking for. How could this happen with a pullback? Well, I'll tell you, if we, instead of getting that, what we could see is potentially either a take of the overnight high or maybe not a take, and start to see a choppy grind, one of these sort of grinds lower. With this kind of trade base, we're pushing into bids. There are bids here. So what we could see is a grind into these bids. I don't know how far it would go if it eventually resolves bullish, but bottom line is, for me, if we start to see something like this, I will be looking for an impulse higher that takes out the prior area of balance. I'll be looking for a pullback to trade, and then I'll be on the long for what I just said. So if we get something like that, I would be up for a trade like that. It would be wonderful to get that trade. I'm not super expecting it, but that could be a great trade. What happens if we fall into this area? Well, I got to tell you, I think on the first test of this area, I am expecting support. I would expect there to be support. It's not like I would just sit there with a bid, but if we get a strong reversion into this area, I would tend to think that there are going to be some buyers left, and I would again look for the impulse higher. Now, if we push into that area, I'll just tell you that for me, things could get very murky if we get in here. We either would have to get in here and very quickly reject, or if we don't get into there, it could get very murky. Really, though, to be honest, I think my initial expectation, if we get into here, I would expect to see quick rejection. But, if I'm expecting that, other people are expecting that. The market doesn't like to do exactly what people expect. It likes to give you something that only makes sense in hindsight. But be aware of it. Now, let's talk about what happens if everybody gets surprised today and we don't get the bullish move. How could that happen? Well, I feel like if we are going to revert, we'd still have to push a little higher and release the tension. But it doesn't necessarily have to happen, but it's my expectation, regardless of how it happens, if we start to see offers pile up in this area, or just a difficulty going higher from this area, and we lose this area right here, and we start to see it drop, and it looks like it's a dip to buy, but then we try to get higher and we can't, and we get into this area, we get into the 5620s and still can't get higher and drop into this area right here, this would start to worry me. It would start to worry the longs. And specifically, the reason it would start to worry me is if we start pushing and then I clearly see we're just not getting highs, because that means the market is going to start to get overloaded with longs that need to sell. And if they can't sell highs, they're going to be forced to sell lows. I would really need to see a strong impulse lower and an inability to get above to initiate any shorts in this area. It could happen, but I would need to see a pretty strong impulse and an inability to recover. And then if we would get below this 5620s and see that happening right here, then I would be open for a zone-to-zone continuation lower. But really, I got to say, I'm tending to think that if we get down to this area, the prior month's low, I think that I would expect there to be buyers waiting there. We'll find out today. But anyway, so the bearish idea would be, as I've said, kind of an attempt higher, offers start to line up, and then we just can't get prior highs and we start grinding lower. If we see this area get lost, I would just be looking for zone-to-zone action. The key target for any shorts, as I said, would be for me prior month settle. And I would be very surprised to even see a trade, and I would definitely expect to see some support. I can easily be wrong on that, however. And if we are wrong and we lose the prior month's settlement, I would just be going zone to zone lower. And on a real significant move below the prior month settle, it would be this zone, the 5450s, that would be the key area that I would look to trade. What about a nothing day? High percentage of a nothing day today, guys, because I don't think anyone, I think I could see how a lot of participants are just okay with this pricing right now into non-farms. So a nothing day for me would probably just look like a grindy continuation of this trend that hits expected targets but does not really give us that much of a great trade. What we might also see is kind of like a rounded tops here and then just like a sharp pullback, and everyone's like, oh, are we going to actually pull back? And then it just comes right back and no one gets the trade. That would probably be our nothing day. Is it possible to have a quick repricing in one way or another and have a nothing day that way? Sure. If we got a quick repricing higher, I would expect it to push above this 70 zone and then have a nothing day in here, in this area, just kind of chopping around. Could we just drop lower into this key area and have a nothing day right here? We could, but if this just drops into here and just hangs out for a while, to be honest, I would expect to see at some point some reversion higher later in the day. That's what I would expect. I could be wrong. The bigger surprise would be if we dropped into here and just hung out and then just sold off later. That would be more of a surprise. I don't think it's going to happen though. But anything could happen. That's what I got for you today. The key pieces to the S&P 500 today are the fact that we are gapping higher. We're pushing into this area of 70s. If the 70s are accepted and we're able to push above, we know our targets. If they're not accepted, first beware of the nothing day. But if we get a nice kind of pullback here, I would be looking for the impulse to play along with it. If the impulse doesn't show up though, and we're not getting prior highs, I would probably be hands off until I see a very clear short signal or an opportunity to play outside in. That's what I got for you today. I hope this is helpful. I hope you're having a great morning. I hope your great morning continues. And I hope, most importantly, that you find a way today to improve your trading that is not dependent upon your P&L. That's what I got for you. Let's get out there and clock those ticks. Be aware, NFP tomorrow, guys, so don't go too crazy today. That's what I got. Have a good one. Ciao.